Assalamu alaikum, I'm Maz Patel. Welcome to Analysis. The world stands at a precipice. It's witnessing an alarming escalation in rhetoric between the United States and Iran. President Donald Trump has issued one of his most incendiary warnings yet, claiming that Iranian civilians will die tonight, unless, of course, Tehran agrees to a deal to end the ongoing war. We have this report.
President Donald Trump intensified pressure on Iran on Tuesday, issuing one of his starkest warnings yet as his self-imposed deadline for a deal approached. In a post on his Truth Social platform, Trump claimed that a whole civilization will die tonight if Iran fails to agree to terms that include reopening the Strait of Hormuz, a critical global oil route. The president has set an 8 p.m. Eastern Time deadline, insisting that Iran must comply or face what he has previously described as the complete demolition of key infrastructure sites. U.S. officials have signaled that the threat includes strikes on power plants, bridges, and other strategic assets should Iran refuse to reopen the strait.
The entire country can be taken out in one night, and that night might be tomorrow night. Now, we'll see what happens. I can tell you they're negotiating, we think, in good faith. We're going to find out. We're getting the help of some incredible countries that want this to be ended because it affects them also. A lot of people are affected by this. But we're giving them till tomorrow, 8 o'clock Eastern Time. And after that, they're going to have no bridges. They're going to have no power plants. Stone Ages, yeah.
Just to clarify, in order for Iran to successfully meet your deadline tomorrow, do they have to make a deal, open the strait, or both?
We have to have a deal that's acceptable to me. And part of that deal is going to be we want free traffic of oil and everything.
The rhetoric comes amid escalating military activity. In recent days, U.S. and Israeli forces have carried out strikes on Iranian infrastructure, including bridges, rail links, and facilities connected to the country's oil exports. Iranian officials have responded by urging civilians to form human chains around power plants, reflecting growing fears of a large-scale attack. Trump's warning has heightened anxiety both inside Iran and internationally. Oil prices surged and global markets dipped on Tuesday as investors braced for potential disruption to one of the world's most important energy corridors. Analysts say the Strait of Hormuz, through which roughly a fifth of global oil supply normally passes, remains a critical pressure point in the conflict. Despite the mounting pressure, Iran has rejected the latest U.S. proposals, demanding guarantees that hostilities will not resume, and calling the American ultimatum an act of criminal intent. With hours remaining before the deadline, diplomatic efforts continue, but there is little clarity on whether either side is prepared to compromise.
Iran, in turn, has warned that any U.S. strike on its energy infrastructure would trigger a regional catastrophe, threatening to plunge the entire Middle East into darkness. As the deadline for reopening the Strait of Hormuz passed on Tuesday, governments around the world were watching nervously to see whether Washington would act on its threats. Here in Britain, Downing Street refused to clarify whether the UK would deny American use of British bases for potential strikes targeting bridges, power stations, and other critical infrastructure. In the United States, political opposition to the president's approach is intensifying. Senior Democrats, including Chuck Schumer and Chris Murphy, have condemned the plans as reckless, describing them as a prelude to mass civilian casualties. Congresswoman Rashida Tlaib has even called for the 25th Amendment to be invoked, while Congressman Jim McGovern has accused the president of using illegal and genocidal threats. Meanwhile, the head of the IEA, the International Energy Agency, warns that the current oil and gas crisis triggered by the blockade of the Strait of Hormuz could be more severe than those of 1973, 1979 and 2022 combined. We have this report.
Oil prices rose on Tuesday ahead of a deadline set by US President Donald Trump. He told Iran to open the Strait of Hormuz or face attacks on power plants and other infrastructure. Brent crude futures were at around $111 a barrel by afternoon European time, while West Texas Intermediate crude was close to a 4-week high $116 a barrel. Trump has given Iran until 8 p.m. in Washington to reopen the strait, where about a fifth of global oil supply is normally shipped. Iranian forces effectively shut the strait after US and Israeli attacks began in late February. Trump said every bridge in Iran will be decimated by midnight Eastern time zone on Wednesday if it isn't reopened. He further warned, quote, every power plant in Iran will be out of business, burning, exploding, and never to be used again. Iranian media said strikes intensified on Tuesday, targeting bridges and airports and more. Oil prices have soared due to disrupted exports from Gulf oil producers. It's led to a financial windfall for those still able to export, which includes Iran, Oman and Saudi Arabia. But other states have lost billions of dollars. The conflict has sent spot premiums for West Texas Intermediate crude surging to record highs. That as Asian and European refiners try to replace Middle Eastern supply.
Human rights monitors report nearly 3,600 people killed in the US-Israeli strike so far, among them more than 1,600 civilians, including hundreds of children. So joining me to discuss is Dr. Rebwa Fattah, a Middle East expert, and also Dr. Anne Speckhard, the Director of International Centre for the Study of Violent Extremism. Dr. Rebwa, on the verge of what many describe is apocalyptic outcomes perhaps taking place in the next few hours, how do you feel the region is bracing itself, because neither side appears to be giving any way?
No, but let us take it one by one. The first one is the Strait of Hormuz was open before the war. It wasn't one of the objectives of the war, but it seems to me the president states that now that is the objective of the war. And while the president using this confusing argument and trying to hit a moving target, it really confuses the entire world, the Iranians and the international community. The second point is vital too. That's not a language of negotiation. The language of negotiation is not that we're going to take you back to prehistorical country and then if you don't negotiate with us, it's like you are either live or die. If you want to live, you have to do what we tell you to do, otherwise you die. And let us take the argument of the human rights violations. Before I come to here, I talked to some Iranians in Kurdistan region of Iraq on the border, and I also talked to local people. Everybody is terrified. I don't see why a president should have the mandate to terrify the local population in this way. You know, people are simple, don't understand. They think this will be like Hiroshima, because when you're using this language, taking back to people, taking people back to prehistorical, people terrified. They think this is going to be like Hiroshima or Kawasaki. So the language is really bad, and this is not the way to negotiate. And plus, President Trump has been isolated. I believe he lost, I wouldn't say all, most of the partners, conventional partners like UK, France, Philippines, Japan. I can just go on. That all these countries in the background trying to put a new world order together. And either we are seeing a new world order or not, I don't know. But the Russians are celebrating that NATO is finished. So putting all this together, the other point, which is also important, the president wouldn't know that the act, in fact, gathering the population around the Islamic State, because maybe he hasn't heard of patriotic. Iranian people are very patriotic, and when you are threatening them, a very old civilization, let us not forget Khorsh, the Iranian king, was fighting with Alexandra the Great. This civilization going back to hundreds and hundreds of years, and somebody coming and telling them, we're going to take you back, I think that's not going to work.
Okay, thank you for that, Rebois. Dr. Speckhard, many would criticize the United States, some justifiably, others not justifiably, perhaps too extreme. But this language being used by the president is not American. I don't think anybody would say that this is how Americans are or that he is any representation of what America stands for. Yet we see little in terms of pushback in the United States, apart from a few Democratic voices, nothing in the Republican Party, and a media that appears to be, in the main, compliant with echoes of criticism in the ether. Is that a fair reflection of where America stands, or is there something major happening that perhaps the world doesn't see in terms of what Trump is doing to that country, your country?
Well, thank you for saying that. And this isn't American, what he's doing, and it's very shocking. He's been moving us slowly into a fascist state, and this is the action of a monolithic dictator that has so cowed or so by corruption called others into his fold so they don't criticize him. Because you're right, the Republican Party has not reined him in when they should. It's just completely childish, bullyish, unbelievable from an American president, the way he's speaking and the actions that he's threatening. And it shows complete lack of knowledge about the Middle East, about Iranian civilization. I mean, where was America when Iran was putting up all its amazing buildings and historic sites and, like you said, fighting Alexander the Great? You know, to threaten to destroy a civilization is just mind-boggling. But for me, it tells me that our president is unhinged. There's people behind him that are benefiting. They're all getting terribly, terribly rich. You can track the money that everyone in his cabinet is making, that he himself is making, his sons and daughters. I don't think we've ever seen anything like this in America. And I hope that eventually that they are prosecuted as criminals. And hopefully not as war criminals. I hope he doesn't act on his horrible words. But, you know, and to invoke Allah on top of it all. I mean, what the hell? It's just so unpresidential, and it's so disrespectful of other cultures and other religions. And it plays into everything that terrorists that hate us believe that Americans hate Muslims, that Americans want to destroy Muslim culture, and so on. And we have no idea what we're in for. And already that he unleashed this war, and I believe he did it because of the Epstein files. And, you know, it's just crazy. So all I can say is an apology for normal Americans who are not with him, that want him to stop. I mean, we all went out to the streets for the No Kings protest. I think that was last Saturday. People went in record numbers to say, we don't want this. But, and the religious rhetoric that's being invoked by Hegseth when he talked about the airman that was saved, I mean, it's good that we saved our military airman. He doesn't deserve to die, the one that was shot down. But it does show that the Iranians still have air power, that they can shoot the greatest military's jets out of the air. But for him to invoke something about Good Friday and Easter, that he was, you know, shot down and then raised back up on Easter, and to be praying prayers to Jesus Christ. I mean, we are not all Christians. We're Muslim, Jews, Christians, non-believers, and he doesn't represent us, and they shouldn't be speaking this way. It goes against our Constitution.
Thank you for that. Rebois, back to you. Have we got on both sides a form of extremism? Obviously, the Iranians will say we were the ones that are attacked, so why are you criticizing us? But do we have two polar opposites on either end? And is the world simply abdicating its responsibility to put a stop to this. The Prime Minister, Keir Starmer, has said nothing. It's been 3 hours since that tweet and we've heard nothing from the person that represents this country on the international stage. Again, European leaders, those in the Arab world, leaders across the globe have been very, very quiet in terms of trying to get something done, although we do know there are talks still going on led by Pakistan. What does that tell you, Rebwa, in terms of where the world is? Are we at our most dangerous moment that we've seen in our modern history, certainly since the Second World War?
Let me start by a personal note. I wasn't planning to bring children to this world, to be honest. When they came to this world, it wasn't like now. Whether the world is polarized, I am not sure, but I know that some extreme groups ruling in America. In addition, Iran, I'm not defending Iranian leadership, and I am not defending Islamic Republic of Iran. As we know, we are all aware of the situation. Iran committed great human rights violations against people, intellectuals, media workers, and so on. And the interpretation of a narrow Islamic faith as the constitutions, to me, it's not the way forward in Iran. Just putting the record straight, I'm not defending Iran. But what I see in the world, it seems to me there is no voice except ordinary people like us going on march, as my friend said, against the atrocities. But it seems to me that the war is totally undermined the international law, the international mechanisms, and the international judiciary system. We have none of that. EU separating itself from the Trump administration, Anglo-American, for now, relationship, which has been on for many years, maybe for decades, it seems to me now is in problem. Many countries around the globe negotiating with Iran, including France, Japan, Philippines, Gulf countries, and many others. And whether what we see is a different carving of the world, that's what we see. Whether this new carving is going to be a permanent one, if I don't think very hard, I would say yes, because Trump created the situation that Americans cannot be trusted, which is a very, very sad thing to say as a British person.
Yes, Dr. Rebwa, and that's the whole thing, isn't it? I mean, as I said in my first question to you, one may criticize America. It receives a lot of criticism, but also you should never forget how beneficial America has been to civilization. In fact, all the advances that we've made in technology, the whole revolution has been led and spearheaded by incredible brains and the intellectual capital of the United States. And do you see a way back for the United States? Perhaps, I mean, it's been said now by many commentators, including those in the United States, people like Tucker Carlson, who, again, we may not completely agree with, who say that what we are seeing is America now departing the stage as a unipolar power. And that's what Rebwa Fattah just alluded to. Read reports today that many European countries are trying to negotiate their own deals with Iran. That means America's power has subsided. Do you think that's a good thing in the long term, once this period with Trump ends, which it inevitably will, that America becomes like a normal nation as opposed to one which produces political figureheads like Donald Trump and those around him?
That's a really complicated question. And I think that we're seeing extremism and polarization in many countries.
Yes.
And rallying against some kind of other and religious extremism, somehow it sells and somehow it takes advantage of democracy. So these people get into power because maybe the middle of the road guys can't draw such an audience because they're not playing with fear and hatred. But I hope that the pendulum has swung so far in the US that it's got to swing back to some kind of normality. And when it does, I think that for the time being, we still have a very strong military. If it swings back to the norm, we've got good morals that the rest of the world calls upon us to be the policemen of the world, which is a hard thing, you know, like how do you fight evil without being evil yourself? You know, we have all these special ops happening around the world and the American people don't even know about them. But the idea is to stop narco criminals, terrorists, so on. And I don't think that's a bad thing. Like you said, we had dominance in technology, but we're losing all of that under Trump because where did that come from? I mean, look, during World War II, we took the German scientists, we took the Jews, and we said, you know, immigrants come. And they did, and we got dominance. But now other countries are taking the smart people of the world, and we're actually kicking them out. It's just crazy. So my hope is that we swing back to a norm or to, you know, it's never going to be perfect.
We're coming to the end of the programme. Dr. Fattah, final question to both of you. To you first. Do you think tomorrow there will be a deal that we'll all be celebrating and peace, or do you fear the worst will happen?
I don't think the worst will happen. I have to be optimistic. Hopefully, behind the scenes, there are negotiations and discussions going on. I hope we're not going to see the bombing of civilian bridges, housing, buildings, and so on. That will be a disaster, not just for Iran, but for the entire population of the globe, because we are not living in 1940s or 1930s. We are all glued to our medias and everything affecting us. So I think I'm optimistic that it will, tomorrow we will wake up, hopefully, to a better day.
And same question to you, Dr. Speckhard.
Well, I think it's really interesting. I'm with you. I hope and pray that the worst will not happen. And I believe we do have cooler heads. They're not at the top of the pile. But, you know, just taking the military into consideration, are the pilots going to refuse to carry out war crimes? I hope so. And they've already been encouraged by people that oppose Trump that you should never follow an order that is against the military values and code. And they know that to bomb civilian infrastructure is a war crime. They're saying it themselves on a lower level. So if the order goes, will the military carry it out? And you know, God forbid that it would be something nuclear. I don't put anything past Trump. But on the other hand, I also think that there are cooler heads. There's people that realize we're all interconnected. I mean, look at, you know, what happened with the Strait of Hormuz. The whole world is suffering. Trump is very sensitive to the Dow Jones. He's sensitive. He wants to keep power.
Yeah.
So,
okay.
I don't know.
Well, on that quite somber but quite telling note, I'm going to call time. Unfortunately, we've come to the end of the programme. My thanks to both Reboah Fattah and Dr. Anne Speckhard. I've been Maz Patel. This has been Analysis, and we're hoping for all the best and be back soon.